Hey, y'all, it's Juanita Coley, the founder of Solid Rock Consulting, where we help call centers implement technology, optimize the technology that they currently have in place, and build better workforce management teams. I want to welcome you to Call Center Chronicles. Call Center Chronicles is a place for CEOs, call center professionals, tech leaders, and yes, the customer, looking to have fun yet thought-provoking conversations around how we improve customer experiences and companies' bottom line. We are on a mission to normalize women in tech and workforce management leadership roles, and we believe that that starts with conversation. Welcome to Call Center Chronicles. Hey, guys, and welcome to another episode of Call Center Chronicles. Listen, I am just over the moon. I'm super excited about this episode because, okay, let's just hop into it. Y'all know that I'm always talking about how the contact center is so much bigger than just agent answering call or customer calling into the contact center. The contact center, I'm super passionate about contact center because it's where I really got my start. I started off on the phones as an agent, and I just saw that there was such a plethora of opportunity when it came to contact center. It was more than just taking phone calls. It was more than the customer calling in and asking about if you were me. I got started off in the call center taking calls for a Mall of America gift card called Simon, the Simon gift card that was in Minnesota for Mall of America. And so I saw that it was just so much bigger than what I could see and what I was doing at the particular time. And so you guys already know that I'm super passionate about making sure that people understand the vastness, if that's a word. Y'all know I make up words too. Okay. So I was super excited about, I'm super excited about and passionate about making sure people understand how vast the call center is and making sure that they understand there's so many different avenues they could go. And they also understand the impacts, how their role, whether it's an agent, whether it's a technology vendor, whether it's whatever it is, whether you're in sales, whatever the case may be, marketing, branding, it's so many different avenues that you can go. And the contact center provides that, which is why, again, I'm super passionate about call center. So today I have a treat for you all. Okay. We're just going to hop right in. You may or may not know these superstars, but I'm going to hop right in and welcome Jim Tanner and John Bourne to the show. Thank you guys so much for being here. I count it an honor and a pleasure. Tell us a little bit more about your role, what you do over at VERINT, and I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Y'all ready? Tell me what you're excited about right now in the industry. What is something that you're like, I'm super excited about this right now?
So let me jump in. So my name's John Bourne. I run all of our global channels and alliances here at VERINT. I think it's the most exciting time to be in this industry, right? I've been in this industry a very long time. And when we made the transition from TDM to VoIP, we thought that was incredibly exciting. Compared to that, it's a whole different world. The cloud changes absolutely everything. And there's just so much going on. Like you said, I've got no problem with the word vastness. If that's where you want to go, Juanita, I'm fine with it. It's just a huge opportunity for change and improving customer experience overall. And the number of ways consumers interact with businesses has just gone through the roof. So there's so much to do and so much opportunity for the guys that get there first and really make a big impact.
Yeah, and give us your role over at VERINT again.
So I run global channels and alliances, so I'm really focused on our partnerships globally. We do probably a little over 50% of our business, new business, is with partners. We're a very partner-centric organization. And the cloud is promoting that even more, right? I mean, cloud solutions typically depending on who you talk to, but it can be 6 or 7 vendors that make up one complete cloud solution. So partnerships are incredibly important.
I know you mentioned that we were talking before. We're gonna. Oh, I can't wait to dig into that. We're gonna. That's a good topic we're going to dig into. So thank you so much, John, for being on the show with me today. I'm super excited to dig into some good topics. Super excited to have you here. Jim, tell the people who you are and then tell us what you do.
Oh, sorry, and I interrupted the host. That's terrible. So my name is Jim Tanner. I'm part of John's organization. Me and my team are, as part of our alliances group, we're responsible for the partner programs and the different tools and resources that we put together to enable partners to resell our solutions, service our solutions, support our solutions. So as our partners in our ecosystem are developing their solutions for their customers, they're able to leverage the VERINT portfolio very easily and very quickly. So and it ranges from, like I said, the tools and the websites and the resources and the badgings and the certifications, all those things. I think what I'm most excited about right now in our universe is, the way that customer experience has come around. It puts our partners in this incredibly powerful position because you say it's vastness. We see data that says the average solution now has 7 vendors built into it. So for the partner community that we work with, the exciting thing is they have an opportunity to add more value and more strategic value right out of the gate, right? And that to us is it's an exciting dynamic, and it's one we're excited that we're also ready to help manage.
So thank you so much, Jim, for being on the show. As you can tell, I'm ready to just hop into this conversation. I do a horrible job at the fluff and the build up piece. Cause I'm like, I just want to have good conversations. Like they'll find out who you are, anyway, but that's my being extraness. Okay. So, one thing that I want to hop into and just immediately dive into is around partners. When I first came into the knowledge of what partners were and the partner whole the ecosystem, my mind was so blown that this side of the business for contact center even existed. So, John, I'm going to kick this question to you first. If you had to explain when you say, you're over, global alliances, partnerships, and those things, what does that mean? What are partners? And then how does that impact contact center? So that's a big question, I know.
Wow. Okay. All right. So there's different kinds of partners, right? There are technology partners, like the infrastructure vendors. So, people like Avaya, Cisco, Genesys, all these types of partners where we have to make sure that our technology is integrated to and it runs and it offers a solution. And then as important, if not more important, is the partners of those partners. So we talk about a partner ecosystem. I'll just pick on Cisco, right? Cisco does a huge percentage of their business through their business partners, right? And in the old days, if I can say that, those types of vendors would sell premise-based systems. People would come in and install them and deploy them, and there'd be lots of hardware around. And that was fine, right? Until the cloud came along. And what's happened is a lot of those partners who used to deploy on-premise have taken a step back and started to look at their business because they can't resell premise equipment anymore. They're selling cloud solutions, but what they're really doing is they're aggregating multiple vendors' solutions together to create whatever the business outcome is that the particular customer wants, right? If the focus is on agent next best action, it might take 3 or 4 vendors to pull all that together, including the infrastructure vendor. Maybe they're focused on, after call wrap up, or they're focused on optimizing their schedule. It doesn't matter, right? Or maybe they're doing all of it, right? Mm-hmm. And the other big thing is that there's obviously a lot more automation. There's a lot more self-service. So if you think about the app on your phone, right, to communicate with the bank. In the old days, you'd have to call the bank to talk to the bank about something. Now you just open an app. That is also part of how consumers interact with the businesses, right? But then there's all sorts of other variations in between. There's bots, there's AI that you hear people talking about all the time. Anything that sells service, I could go to a website and self-serve. So like I said at the beginning, the volume of interactions that consumers have with businesses has just gone through the roof. Where the types of conversations people are going to have is, I think we're going to focus on more knowledge workers, people that are dealing with much more complex issues. So I think, we touched on this as well the other day, Juanita, right? So for contact center agents themselves, I think it's a really exciting time, because I think that the level of knowledge and the domain expertise they're going to have to be able to service complex questions and inquiries from consumers is just going to go up and up.
Yeah, that's what I'm really, when I first came into the knowledge of partners, that's where my mind originally went was, man, do agents realize how huge of an opportunity this is? And of course, again, partners had been around before I came into the knowledge, but, because I'm an advocate for contact center agents and, that whole matriculation throughout the contact center space, I'm always thinking, man, what are some of the other avenues that we can leverage agent knowledge, right? Because they're touching customer directly. They understand customer experience. They understand because they're firsthand, their first generation knowledge when it comes to where that knowledge comes into the contact center. And if they understand all the different aspects, whether it's, even if we're not talking about partners, if they understand branding, if they understand marketing, if they understand all the different pieces that contact center touch, then we would have a much better, I think, customer experience.
I'll just add one thing though. I think, obviously COVID was a massive disruption because everybody was running around trying to figure out how the agents could work from home, and there were all sorts of things that were somewhat laborious to sort out, and many companies did it very quickly. So that, in some ways, it's accelerated it, in some ways, it's delayed it, because there just aren't enough agents to go around to service all the interactions people want to have. So we're going to see more and more self-service. We're going to see more apps. You're going to see more bots. And ultimately, the agents that can become a much more sophisticated knowledge worker over time. I know some of the agents that are watching this now are probably thinking, not yet, John. It's coming, though.
It's coming. It's coming, like in real life. So my husband and I, we were, so story time. Anyway, so me and my husband and I, we were taking the kids to Barnes and Nobles, and we were doing just like this weekend outing. Right. And we stopped by Checkers. So it's a fast food restaurant down here in the South. I think up north it's called O'Reilly's or something like that. And so we pull up to the takeout window to do the order, and it's completely automated. I almost jumped out my car. Like, it was the voice comes on the machine. Thank you for, coming here today. What would you like to order? And I'm like, wait a minute, this is all automated. And so I was like, a kid in the candy store, I was like, could I have a number one with lettuce? Seeing if it was going to understand what I was saying. I'm just being extra because I want to see how well the automation and conversational AI works. And it was like, you want a number one with lettuce. Is that correct? I almost lost it. And so I was like, okay, let's see. And then, yes, I want a number three. So everybody orders, right, in the car. And then the machine repeats itself back and says, okay, you have a number one with lettuce. You have a milkshake, strawberry milkshake. So it's really understanding dialect, tonality. It's understanding all of those different things. It says your order total is 56, whatever the case, right? So we please proceed to window 2 to pick up your order. We proceed to window 2, and it's a person at the window, and they're like, hey, yep, you have blah, blah, blah. And we pay for it. And it dawned on it, and I'm like, hey, do you guys, so I asked the person at the window, hey, do you know what this system is that you guys are using? And they were like, what system? I'm like, the one that's taking orders, that's doing half of your job, like the one that's taking, orders at the window. And it was like, I never thought about it. I'm like, excuse me? How have you never thought about, it's a piece of technology that's doing half of what you normally would do, and you haven't thought about the system at all. And he was like, you know what, you make a great point. I really should learn what that system is, learn more about the configurations. How is it doing what it's doing? I'm like, yeah, you probably should do that, you know? And I think the same is true in the contact center space. You know, the more we implement technology, I don't think it does away with jobs. I think we create a more sophisticated human being that can deduce and reason and all of those things. Go ahead, Jim. I feel like you have a light bulb moment. I got a question that I was going to ask you though, but go ahead and have this one.
But I love your example because, okay, so if you think about in that fast food example and you think about the role of a partner, somebody had to put that technology together. I doubt that this is one big chunk of product that just got planted in place. But also somebody had to know the way the systems in that restaurant worked. They needed to know how the employees were going to move around. They probably needed to know the physical space, right? Those are agents, right? Okay, in this case, they're fast food employees, but these are people who understand on the ground what's happening. The irony is, as technology providers and even our partners, none of us are contact center agents, right? So we always used to say in product management, your opinion's interesting and equally irrelevant. Not because we don't care about your opinion, but you're not doing that job day in and day out, right? So the idea that you have this, a good partner is going to come in and put all of that together, but part of what they're doing is including those resources who actually know what's going on the ground. Right?
You gotta say that again, Jim. You gotta say, because I don't think the people got it. Your opinion is
interesting and equally irrelevant.
So
it's an adage that comes out of pragmatic marketing, but it's a very simple idea. If you're going to build or deliver a solution to somebody, you have to recognize you aren't them and you aren't actually in their job. It's one of the ironies of building technology like we do. None of us actually do the job. So we spend a lot of time trying to get into the shoes and the minds of the individuals that are consuming and using our software. That's the beauty of that agent's role. You have to understand what's going on in that day in and day out life of the individuals who are consuming the technology. And that can get lost because people have a tendency to push technology and just assume it's getting deployed. It's a lot of what you do around how do you realize the full value? Are you leveraging it the way that you should do, et cetera? So as an agent, especially, you should realize you have an incredible amount of knowledge and an incredible amount of value in that conversation. Make sure that that's not lost. And as things get deployed and new technology comes along, don't assume that it just got done and you just have to live with it. If it doesn't work for you or if you're struggling with it, there's a lot of good opportunities out there for you to get involved and help to fix it and make it effective, because you'll be surprised how many of your colleagues are struggling with the same thing. But you suck it up and you deal with it, right? I guarantee you see this as you go into companies and you try to help them. And it's like, why did none of you speak up? Oh, we just assumed that's how it was, right?
Yeah, and we didn't know that was our thing because, again, organizations have these silos that are happening and they assume that somebody's going to do it and somebody's assuming that anybody could do it, and because anybody thinks that anybody can do it, nobody does it. Nobody right does. Right, so nobody speaks up because they thought somebody should have done it and somebody thought that anybody could have did it, so nobody does it, you know. And that's how the adage, I think, goes, if I'm saying it right. But when I think about what you're saying, Jim, then how does an organization say, because a lot of times, like what you're saying, with the Checkers example of the drive-through window, it was probably multiple solutions that had to take place. Someone had to look at the process. They had to understand what was happening in the organization, what was happening, what were the goals that were trying to be realized. How does an organization then say, hey, let me find a partner that understands what's going on so that I can get this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different solutions to make up this unified type of approach? How does an organization identify a partner that can help them with something like that?
It's a really great question. Look, John said this earlier, cloud changed everything. Partners are now aggregating all these pieces together, but just pushing technology together isn't the solution either. So I would say look for partners who will engage with you, right? Look for partners who know how to talk about the things like change management and training and enablement as an ongoing exercise. We love the phrase value realization around here, just because, and this workforce management in particular is a really complicated piece of software, right? And nobody goes out the gate using it perfectly. There's a roadmap of which pieces are you going to turn on, and then you get good at that, and then you move to the next stage. So, I would look for words like engagement, change management. You need somebody who's not just there today in a fire and forget. You need somebody who's going to go walk that journey with you. Because the other thing, and John mentioned this as well, is it's not just anymore about, like I said, the applications and the technologies. It's about road mapping out what all of that process is going to look like. So that would be my recommend.
Yeah, I think that that's so important. And like you said, John mentioned this earlier about it, not just cloud changed everything, right? Cloud changed everything to where I don't just have to go. I'm not just saying, hey, let me get this solution or get this solution because I'm looking for this one particular thing. I'm looking for business outcomes, right? I'm not just saying, hey, I need to address average handle time. Yes, that may be a piece of it. But the reason I'm trying to address average handle time is because I want a greater and a better customer experience, which may mean you don't need lower average handle times. You may find that average handle times increase depending on the type of customer that you're dealing with. And so looking at what the business outcome really is targeted at, and then saying, okay, what are the technologies that we then put into place? I thought it was so amazing. John, you were mentioning this when we were talking before. You're saying, I believe, John, you were saying this. It might have been Jim. Y'all both be having so many nuggets. I'll be feverishly writing. You were saying how, organizations have at least 7 different solutions that they are putting together to have to make one experience a lot of times. And I thought that was mind blowing, because I'm thinking about when we're thinking about those 7 different solutions to make one, to address one business outcome. A lot of times, if you think about it like that, how many times are you then touching the agent out of those 7 solutions? How many times are you then touching the customer with that particular solution? And how it's not just about the 7 siloed solutions, it's about them all talking, about them all having, being integrated together, and finding a partner that understands your business outcomes and your business processes so that they understand which ones play nicely together.
If you can see all 7, you got a problem, right?
Oh, that's good.
As a customer, you're just going to see one solution, right?
That's
That's the whole point of the partner. So partners they're starting to look more like systems integrators. They're starting to do more managed service. So they're not selling you something and then leaving, right? They want to be involved. They want to provide a managed service. If you take something like knowledge management, for example, knowledge management, which is a cornerstone to do things like a next best action or agent assist, because you've got to pull the information from somewhere. That knowledge management as a service is a never-ending service, right? Because you're always curating knowledge, you're always updating knowledge, you're always finding new ways to render knowledge, whether it's rendering it on the website, rendering it on the agent's desktop, or frankly, rendering it to the consumer in a text or in the consumer's experience, right? So it's a different engagement model, right? It's not a sell and go. It's it's more of a consultative approach where a long-term engagement, the partner's going to stay there with you. As long as they keep doing a good job, you're going to keep them there, right?
So I have a question. How would you say that you all at VERINT support partners? Like when you're saying, hey, we have these partners out here and you have a huge partner ecosystem, again, you have these integrators, you have education partners, you have so many varied types of partners. How are you supporting these partners, especially when they have so many different functionalities?
Want to take that one, Jim?
Sure. So I think one piece that's important is the way we see it is different partners have different needs, right? Mm-hmm. So we identify what kind of a partner are you going to be with us, right? And some are very pure. There might be a reseller, there might be a technology partner who just builds integrations, there might be a services partner. But the number one, the key is meet them where they are, right? So make sure that the resources and content are relevant in that moment. It's also very possible a partner fits every partner category we have. Great. But even then, you're probably going to be talking to the roles inside that partnership that have that very specific set of requirements. And then it's about what we've done is we built out a very comprehensive partner program that, again, takes that partner and starts to provide for them the resources, the processes, the journeys. We call it one great tool we built is an engagement workshop, where what we want to do with that partner is, John and I both said, different flavors of, it's not a sell and forget anymore, right? So even the introductory process into a partner, into a solution that a partner is going to go sell of ours, we drive the engagement conversation, because it's really critical that the partner know all of the resources we can provide, all of the resources in the ecosystem. Their own go-to-market may change some things. And once that gets put together, that's only then can a partner really take that and be successful with it. The other thing is we really work hard to enable our partners to scale. We don't want every time that the partner is selling a piece of our technology that it become a exercise. That gets expensive. It's hard to do. It's actually not a good experience for anybody. So that's the other piece. How can we put it together so that partner can begin to scale their business, which again just helps us all.
Let me just add to it, just briefly, right? So I think partners are all different, and one of the things I always say is every single partner we've got has already got a day job. They already exist for some other reason. They didn't exist just to go and work with VERINT, right? So part of the engagement program is to understand how we add value to whatever their day job is, right? Or how we augment their day job so they can do more of what it is that they're trying to do in their core, right? So it's not one size fits all, which is why Jim built the whole partner program, which addresses different things for different partners in different stages of their evolution. Like I mentioned before, you had a lot of partners who were selling premise systems. They're all evolving to sell something else. They're selling cloud. When they're putting together solutions from multiple places, plus possibly a lot of their own intellectual property. So everybody's different. Everybody's got a core reason for what their business is doing, and nobody wants to be the same. Everybody needs some sort of distinctive competence and competitive advantage, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give them that competitive advantage, and with a solution that gives customers what they need.
So I'm thinking about our audience. And I'm thinking about the workforce director. I'm thinking about the VP of operations. I'm thinking about the person who has spent a lot of time in the contact center. And they're like, man, I never even knew that partners existed, right? What would you say to them as they are thinking about, man, I think that this is something that I would be interested in, kind of being an advocate in the partner space or helping customers understand the technology, because I understand technology, I understand the discipline. I spent my entire career building out contact centers, right? Or building out workforce management solutions, those discipline. What would you say to them as far as getting more information around partner community and expanding their knowledge?
Let me kick it off, and I know Jim will jump in too. So if I'm a workforce director, right, the technologies that I employ to run the contact center typically revolve around the infrastructure I'm using, right? So if I'm using Avaya, you can find all the people that do work around Avaya and augment Avaya or Cisco. And we have lots of customers who use multiple vendors because of acquisitions and things like that. VERINT's approach is to be completely open, so we're quite happy to sit on top of everything. But when you're talking about our partners and the partners of our partners, I think often, unless you're talking to a big SI like Accenture or someone like that, then you're going to naturally gravitate probably a little bit towards who your infrastructure vendors partners are, right? That's the reality of it, right? And of course, a lot of customers are in the middle of changing. A lot of people are moving their premise-based telephony systems into what we call CCAS today,
Mm-hmm.
contact service, right? And there are lots of contact center as a service vendors. You might be able to buy a contact center as a service from your existing vendor, or a lot of people are looking at other places, right? So the partners of those vendors are often an obvious place to look first.
Jim, what do you think? If I'm talking to, if I've had this question, so that's why I'm thinking through this. I've had this question where a VP of a contact center, they're like, man, I've been in this space for quite some time, and I'm looking to transition, and I've never considered myself a person in technology. However, I know all the technology because I've worked in BPO spaces, so I know the Avayas, I know I know all the technology, right? And so they're now wanting to move to a consulting space. Partners sounds like that may be a space for them to transition into, because they have that, like you were saying, John, it's no longer just sell it and forget it. It's more so bringing them into a consultative approach. Someone with a VP background in contact center, workforce management, that whole gist, they're saying, hey, I want to transition now into maybe technology sales or technology consulting. How do you see them transitioning? What does that career path look like for them?
I think, we've touched, but they're really the subject matter experts. They're the guys with the domain expertise. Jim was talking about, the average product manager in a contact center space has never worked in a contact center, right? So someone that's worked in a contact center that really understands how, what makes it tick I think there's a huge opportunity for those individuals that are interested in moving into consulting roles. Either like you did, you started a whole business around it, right? But there are lots of systems integrators and aggregators that I'm sure would benefit greatly from the domain expertise that people have in the contact center if they want to make that transition. Right?
Yeah, so it sounds like then the career path you're saying would be to go to system integrator, right, and say, hey, this is what my background looks like, and wanting to move into this kind of domain, this realm of work.
Yeah, and the system, it doesn't have to be one of the big globals like Accenture or KPMG. There are lots of smaller systems integrators that focus 100% just on the contact center or customer experience as a whole. So those would be obvious places to look.
How do you see, in your experience, how do you see the difference between people who have that contact center experience versus people who don't have that? I mean, they're amazing salespeople. Like they can sell ice to an Eskimo, right? How do you see the difference when it comes to those people they're amazing salespeople versus people who actually have experience in the contact center space? How does that sale in that customer relationship usually vary?
I'll let Jim take this one. Just share it.
I mean, again, you go back to the domain expertise. I mean, now, in an old world where I'm going to sell you something and you're going to sign a contract and then I get to walk away from it, the seller who is a great seller could excel. But now you keep hearing solution selling, engagement selling, the long term. One of the things the cloud does is it puts a vendor like us into a position where we're selling every day to that customer, right? The cost of change is nowhere near what it used to be. And conversely, the partners who are putting stitching all these pieces together, they're in the same boat. So there's a huge need out there for contact center resources who can go engage and share the expertise that they built. So as an example, I might have put these 6 or 7 solutions together. I've delivered it to you as my customer. We've implemented it really well. We took in a lot of good change management happened. But now the real value of that solution starts in, right? Now it's how do we come in and ensure usage is proper? How do we ensure the models are proper? How do we go evaluate your business processes and make sure that we're absolutely capturing everything? Who better knows how to do that than the people who've been doing it hands in these systems for a really long time? And that knowledge, so I would say the more you can make a methodology out of that knowledge, which is, I think, again, exactly what you did, but make a methodology out of it, begin to build that expertise. Inside your own organization, there may be great opportunity, right, for advancement with that kind of skill. And certainly in the partner community, they're going to need people who know how to take that methodology and go apply it and go drive a really specific change for that particular customer.
And there are lots of roles, Juanita, right? So, I mean, you may have an educational background. You may know how to teach people how to do things. So you could go into some sort of training role. The consulting role tends to be much more before the fact, right? Let's talk about what you need. Let's define what you need. So there are different roles for different types of people. It depends where your passion lies, right? There's a big need for people to train people how to use these systems much more effectively and more efficiently. So,
and if we can touch on that, it's not just using the software. You're teaching them. This is about an engagement that you're driving. So again, our training used to be push this button, then this menu pops. But I like, John, I like what you just said, because you're not just teaching software anymore. You're teaching the whole customer engagement process.
Yeah, you're teaching discipline, right? It's almost like I always use this analogy around QuickBooks and accounting, right? Like I can go pick up QuickBooks, the software, and say, okay, I'm trying to get a profit and loss statement out of it. I'm trying to balance my books. But if I don't understand the discipline, I'm going to go into the QuickBooks software and be like, oh, it doesn't work. No, it's not that it doesn't work. You don't understand accounting. You don't understand that you need a profit and loss statement. You don't understand statement of cash flows. You don't understand balance sheets. You don't understand what even makes that up. What makes up a profit and loss statement? You don't know what makes that up. So it's not that QuickBooks is broken. It's that you don't understand that you need assets, liabilities. These are what makes up a profit and loss statement. So you keep fumbling the ball, And
one of the things that you asked about, what can we leverage these resources for? If you get to the point where it's broken, you've wasted a lot of your time, and you may be in a position where you're going to change the technology inappropriately. So you're going to incur a lot of costs, and you're going to be right back at square one. So again, people who understand not just that it's going to break. Let's take those steps early on in the process in order to drive the conversation and make sure that you never get to the broken part. And workforce management, you could probably list the things in WFM where that can happen. So that's the other skill set to think about. Know how these things get set up so that they work for the long haul, not necessarily wait until they're broken to fix them. Because just like QuickBooks, you throw QuickBooks out and you go somewhere else, and then you get frustrated with that in 3 months, right? So
exactly, yeah. And you spent a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of dollar on consulting, bringing in the big wigs, air quote, right, to tell you what needs to happen, but they don't understand the discipline. So they're going to talk to you from a methodology perspective or concept perspective, but when we get to actually implementing it, I can't tell you how many times I've been in an organization where someone said, hey, bring this in, and then it got down to the training of the solution, and they're like, that's not what we need to do at all. Like that's I'm like, wait, how is this happening?
It's the classic. We've all used chatbots or self-service that frankly just sucked, right? And it's because someone that set them up without the right domain expertise, that didn't really understand how the consumer wants to communicate with the business, right? That domain expertise isn't coming from a technology guy. It's coming from a real person that's interacted with consumers. So that's another aspect of what someone who's worked inside the call center industry can add value to. There's nothing wrong with the AI technology itself. You tell it to do dumb things, it's going to do dumb things, and it's going to upset your consumers, and everybody's going to hang up or just asking for an agent all the time, right? So that's one of the things that's also true about the cloud and AI especially, is these are not one and done. You're going to refine and tune and evolve these systems on an ongoing basis, and it really needs people that really understand how to interact with the consumer, whether it's a live conversation or whether it's not, right? Whether it's some sort of bot that's having the communication.
I love that. I love that. You say you tell it to do dumb things and it's going to do dumb things. Like But seriously, that's the truth. The system is only going to, like when I'm teaching WFM and I'm talking about, for example, let's talk about shift biz, right? If I'm talking to an organization about setting up shift biz and all of those different things, I'm like, the system is only going to spit out what you give it. So if you only give it 8x5s, 8-hour shifts, 5 hours a day, it's not going to, why are you expecting 10x4s? Why? You didn't tell it can give you 10-hour shifts 4 days a week. You only told it that it could give you 8-hour shifts 5 days a week, right? You don't put vanilla in an ice cream machine expecting to get out chocolate. You don't. You expect to get vanilla because that's what you put in the machine. So I love that analogy. You tell it to do dumb things and it will give you dumb things. So how do we make sure as organizations, and this is where I really wanted, this is a conversation I really wanted to have, because again, I don't think people really understand how the partner community impacts the contact center and how what we are doing in the partner community really impacts customer experience and employee experience. To your point, John, we've all had that chat bot experience that we're like, no, why? Just, dear God, give me a representative. As a matter of fact, we go into the conversation saying, give me a representative. Like, we didn't even try the chat sometimes. And it's because we've been conditioned to believe like somebody has set this up incorrectly, or we don't even think that somebody set it up. We just think that the technology doesn't work. And it's not that the technology doesn't work, is that someone has implemented unneeded technology or configured it in a way that it was not needed to be set up because they didn't have that hands-on experience, or two, again, the technology just isn't needed. And so I think this is where the partner community comes in to impact this experience, to say, this is more than just slanging technology. This is a consultative engagement where we understand it may take 7 different types of technology to give you this business outcome. But to your point that you said earlier, if I know it's 7 different technologies, then something's broken.
Something's broken, yeah, absolutely. Right. So I can tell you in your example with Checkers, there's a speech recognition engine that's translating that audio to text. When it talks back to you, there's a text-to-speech engine that's synthesizing somebody's voice and talking back to you. There's 2 technologies right there, and they're running maybe in 2 different clouds. It's endless, right?
Yeah, and not to mention the technology that's being transcribed and put into the register, right? Because this has to give me what the total's going to be. It has to go into the inquiry system to find out how much each of these items cost. Right. All of those different things. There's so many different things that's touching. But me, the customer, I should know that if I don't know any better, right? I know this because this is what I do for a living. Right. But I should know that, hey, it's 7 different things that's going on behind the scenes. And if I do, then something's, like to your point, something's broken.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I absolutely love that. So my next question is around partners. So if we're talking to partners and we're saying, hey, we know that cloud is now moving us to not just be out here slinging technology, but to actually be consultants, how do partners get better when it comes to understanding the business processes, understanding what's happening real time in the contact center space so that they can have a more consultative approach and not just, hey, you get an ACD, you get a WFM tool, you get this, like how do they get that deep knowledge if they don't have it already?
Do you want that one, John?
I'm giving you a shot here. Go for it.
So the question is, how do partners go generate that knowledge so that they can go be effective that way?
Yeah. How do they, I know one of the things I was super excited about the partner portal is how you guys take the information and make it, and you have use cases, right? So you're talking about like, this is how it's used and why it's used and different things like that. So if I understand that I'm a great salesman, right? Great salesperson. Now I understand use case around a particular thing of why it would be being used in real life scenarios. How do you think, aside from what you're doing in Partner Portal and your own partner program at VERINT, how do you think partners generate that partner knowledge? I mean, that business knowledge.
That kind of, well, I mean, I think the very first thing is they acquire it. I mean, again, we're talking about agents and people who are in the industry who can make that transition in and bring that expertise and knowledge in. Because the other piece of it is, it used to be who knew the technology better than anybody else, right? Who knew how that database had to be configured just so that the performance was exactly what it needed to be. That's gone. From a partnering perspective, the cloud provider is doing all that work. I'm getting a tenant that's ready to go, and now I get to go perform my work. I can implement and service and support and that sort of thing. So I would say shift your knowledge as a partner into the domain, right? Focus on those outcomes, focus on the business processes that you're trying to drive, and then know your ecosystem well enough that you can bring those pieces of the ecosystem together as building blocks. But yeah, our value used to be on the DBAs and the server people and server sizing people. And I mean, we would spend countless hours trying to optimize that because it's expensive stuff, right? That's gone. That expertise isn't what's relevant. It's the domain expertise. How do contact centers operate? How do customer experience programs work? Right? How do consumers operate? And actually going all the way out to what are the consumer dynamics that are out there? So I think it's a combination of develop and hire and acquire it. And you're going to acquire it from people who have been sitting in the industry, taking calls, engaging, building programs inside companies.
Why do you think the partner community is so important? What's that thing about the partner community that makes it? Why not just go directly to vendor?
You can. You get. So we talk about this too, right? So historically, some of the really big, Fortune 500 companies, we talk about, they would go and buy point solutions, right? So they buy one solution from vendor A, another solution from vendor B, and because they have oftentimes fairly large IT departments, fairly large DevOps teams, and they'll take that role on themselves and they'll bring everything together, right? But if you're a small contact center with 200 agents, you just don't have all that IT and DevOps capability lying around. If you're a big bank, of course you've got that, right? So, you tend to find it a lot in, I don't know, I'm just picking a number. So any contact center with less than 1,000 agents, let's say, just for argument's sake, they want to buy everything from a single vendor. They want to deal with a single vendor and they trust that vendor to bring everything together. They need the vendor to act more like a solutions consultant and not like an installer or an implementer. They need that vendor to be a real partner, not to play on the pun there, but they need it. They need those vendors to be with them the whole time because they're 100% dependent on them because all the systems are in the partner's environment or in the environments of the partner, so the partner's partner, right? So, but I'm seeing more and more really big, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies that are saying, I'm done with this. I'm just going to go to one vendor and I expect them to provide everything for me. But, it's not everybody's the same, right? But it's typically the larger guys, larger companies that will still go and, go to individual vendors. But more and more, for the majority of the contact centers, they're going to one vendor for everything.
What's a partner question that people never ask?
Have you done it before? Is a good one, right? Show me, right? So customer references, use cases, things like that are more important than ever, right? Because it's a different sell. It's a different story, right? People are talking about outcomes, right? They're not talking about selling you a piece of hardware and some telephony equipment and installing some software anymore. If they are, you're talking to the wrong people. The clues are there if they are, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's easy to get, I think, caught up in all of the buzzwords within the industry. I mean, people will sell you buzzwords alone, oh, we're going to do this around your customer experience, and let's do customer journey mapping and employee engagement. And let's do this great digital transformation. And before you know it, you have a statement of work with full of buzzwords. And it's like, but what am I buying again? Like, I don't know what I'm actually getting.
You're exactly right, Winnie. People don't buy AI. It's not a thing, right? You're buying some sort of business outcome, right? If you want to improve your consumer self-service, then you're going to focus on some sort of self-service solution or solutions, right? Whether they're using an app on a phone, because everybody uses mobile phones now to communicate with businesses for the most part, or a website, right? And it's going to be different technology for a mobile phone than it is for the website, but you all want it to look and feel the same. You want the experience to be the same. You want the knowledge to be the same, right? So those takes a while to put all those pieces together. Right?
Yeah.
That's what you want to do.
So, all right, I knew we were going to be coming up to the end of our time, and I feel like I can keep this conversation going for some time, but I'm not going to do that to the people. I'm not going to do that to the people. Okay. So if you had to leave me with one thing around anything, what do you think is most impactful? It may not even be around partner community, but one of the things that you're thinking like right now is just really important. What would that one thing be?
So for me, I think if you're a contact center agent, your world's changing, right? Your expertise is becoming more valuable. You're the front door to the companies that you're representing. And, it's just so much more impactful because the knowledge and the domain expertise you've got is invaluable, right? It's because you're going to be dealing with complex things and complex questions, complex problems to solve, and that takes know-how, right?
I love it. I love it. Jim, if you had to leave us with one thing that you think is really important right now, what would that be?
Well, I think I'll take a slightly different perspective. When you're looking for the partners that you're going to leverage, right, to go drive your customer journey, look for partners who are using language like engaging. Look for partners that really talk about the longer term plan, right? The idea of progressing you through the journey that you're going to take on. The fire. There's still folks out there that are playing the fire and forget game when they're selling, and you don't want them. So that would be my words of wisdom at this point of our conversation.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you guys dropped so many different bombs and gems that, especially around one of my favorite pieces of the conversation was around how, and of course I'm biased, right? But of course around how agents and how technology is creating so many different avenues for the agent to get better, faster, and be that subject matter expert, because they are touching the customers day over day. They are picking up all the clues that the executives aren't seeing because they just aren't seeing it every day. They're not close enough to it. And so if they really hone in on those things, the people who are in operations, the agents, and all of those different things, if they're in those roles, if they hone in on the things that are happening and catch those trends, the future is really bright for them. Really, really, really bright.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm most excited about. All right, cool beans. Well, John, Jim, hang out in the green room for me for a second. I'm going to wrap the show and I'll be right over there with you.
Thanks, Juanita.
All right, guys, I told you, okay, of course, again, I'm biased because I love talking contact center. I love talking about agent experience. I love talking about customer experience. And I love to think outside of the box. And before I came into the awareness of the partner community, this was a completely foreign concept to me. So if you got anything from this show, I would love to hear from you in the comments. So if you got anything from this show, I want you to start to think about contact center outside of just your day-to-day role, right? Outside of the things that you're doing and touching every day. But I also want you to dig deep into the things that you're thinking about and the things that you are touching day to day, and start to think about how can you become knowledge experts in that particular thing. Like, how do I make this? John mentioned this earlier. He talked about creating it and creating a methodology out of it, making sure that it's, and Jim touched on this as well when he talked about making sure that you're not just looking at the technology in itself, but understanding why we're using that technology. What's the methodology, or the discipline is what I like to call it. What's the discipline behind what it is that you're doing? Because then you create a lane all in of itself by yourself. And so I hope that resonated with you in some way. I want to hear from you though. So what are the things that you want to talk about next? Who should I interview next? All right, guys. Until next time, talk to y'all soon. Bye.